Hello and welcome back to Mega Movie Z. We are here to hype ourselves up for almost said Fan Four Stick. I'm gonna say it a lot today, but Fantastic Four First Steps comes out tomorrow. We're all really excited to see it and review it here on the channel. But before that, we thought it would be fun to go back and revisit all of these various takes of Fantastic Four on the big screen over the decades, the highs and lows, or maybe just the lows of this franchise across the various decades here. They've made several attempts to make this thing work. It hasn't really worked. So rather than just like a traditional review, we thought it would be more fun to look back at the history of the Fantastic Four on the big screen, talk about where it went wrong, where it went right, and ultimately how we feel going into this next take on the Fantastic Four. So if you guys want to look back at these last four films, believe it or not, there are four previous Fantastic Four films to talk about here, but we're going to talk about all of those and more tonight, but I'm not by myself. I'm here with the Wolf Man himself, Fantastic Wolfman. He is here in the chat with me. How are you feeling, Wolf? What are you doing? Are you hyped for the Fantastic Four tomorrow?
I am very hyped, but the thing is, it kind of ruins things because having four Fantastic Four movies, that's perfect. That's because anywhere beyond that, that's five. Now we're getting five, so it just kind of ruins the order.
Yeah, you're all so nice and even, and now we're not.
Yeah.
But,
Yeah, there's a lot of people on social media who are like, fourth time's the charm. They nailed it on the fourth time, and I'm like, nice the Fantastic Four erasure.
Yeah, you've heard his voice. That's Ari, once again back on the show here to talk about the legacy of the Fantastic Four. How are you feeling, Ari? You hyped to talk about your favorite movie of all time, Fan Four Stick?
Yeah, I am. I am hyped to talk about the cinematic masterpiece. I mean, you can say that again.
Well, we will be saying that again. I'm sure we'll be quoting that movie throughout this film. Several great quotes in that one. We'll talk shit about it, but it is a fun movie to watch.
Funnily enough, that's the one we'll spend the most time on.
It might be. We're going to spend the most time probably on like the worst ones here, but we'll start it out here in the early 90s. You guys might not necessarily know about this one. I guess it's more well known now than it was before. The internet has really made this movie well known, but in the early 90s, there was a attempt to make a Fantastic Four film with Roger Corman and this German company called Constantine Films, who owned the rights to the Fantastic Four. They bought it for very, very, very cheap from Marvel. And now the rights were about to expire right at the end of 1992, and Marvel knew this was going to happen, so they kind of lined up their cinematic universe. They said, look, we feel very confident in our film properties, and we want to launch our own thing. But in order to do that, we have to have the rights back to us so we can work with Fox and work with our people to make this happen. And the one thing standing in their way was this pesky Fantastic Four movie that totally surely wasn't going to happen. But then yet, like 2 days before the end of this contract, they go into production on the Fantastic Four. It is a movie that, was never planned to be released according to some people, but other people really believed in it. The cast, the producers in some way all believed in it, but in the end, it was one of those movies that, it was promoted and marketed. People talk about this movie as if it was nothing, but it had a press tour. It was on talk shows. It had panels at Comic-Con. It showed the trailer at big Hollywood events, and they were treating this like it was a real movie. And that's what makes this very interesting to me is this was a movie that almost could have been, and it was produced by the famed producer Roger Corman, who was kind of like the king of trash. He'll release anything. So the question then becomes, why is this the one movie Roger Corman doesn't release? And you start to think that it may have just been a huge, big payout from the Marvel guys, and it almost feels like, hey, we have these rights and we want to get them bought out from us. And in order to do that, we've got to produce this movie and we got to make it seem real. The more real the movie is, the bigger the payout's going to be from Marvel when they want to squash this thing. So Ali Arad, who's going to be here for the whole time on this episode today, he is kind of at Marvel saying, look, we got to get this thing back. We got to squash this Fantastic Four movie. He ultimately ends up buying out Roger Corman and the production company, giving them a huge, huge fat check of millions of dollars. So they get a lot of money. The cast and the crew who worked on this movie and put their heart and soul into something that was ultimately thrown in the dumpster, they get nothing. And that seems like it's the ultimate story of Hollywood. The producers make the money. Everybody else, they get nothing. But it's a forgotten movie that ultimately does have this legacy of being rediscovered at like conventions and stuff like that. I don't know when you guys found out about it, but it's probably been, I probably found this thing like 15 years ago, something like that. 2010, 2011, one of those years I first went to Comic-Con, I remember discovering a DVD of this thing buried somewhere at some booth and being like, what the hell is this? A Fantastic Four from the 90s, and bringing that thing home and watching it and being shocked at what I was seeing. And I have a lot of feelings about this. It's not a great movie, but it's a fun movie. The production is very fun. The costumes are fun. The cast is really good at what they're doing, but very clearly a movie that was extremely low budget by intent. Like, this was not a movie that we were supposed to watch, but it ends up leaking. We'll talk about how it came out at the end of the conversation. But Michael, this was your first time watching this. Was it your first time hearing about this? How did you find out about this movie?
So yeah, this was, I think, you talking about the 90s Fantastic Four was really the first time that I heard about it, because I was really only familiar with the 2000s movies, and I grew up on the 2000s movies. I watched those ones a lot growing up, and then, you know, of course, Fan Four Stick, I knew about those, but then I was like, wait, there's 4 of these? Whenever you told me that there was a 90s one. And then I was like, well, where can I watch this? And it had the situation where it was basically erased, and the only way to watch it was basically through like a YouTube link, or if you could find like a bootleg DVD of it or something like that, you know. And the story behind this one fascinates me.
Yeah, it's one of those ones where the story is almost more exciting than the movie itself, because you watch the movie and it's basically what you expect. It's a low-budget cheeseball Fantastic Four. The costumes are all really goofy. The effects are all really cheesy, and it doesn't really work that well. But it has a lot of charm, especially when you compare it to the 90s and 80s stuff of its kind, like Captain America's and that kind of thing that came out around the same time. This is so much better than those movies. And I understand it was not meant to be released, but I do wonder, like, for the cast's sake and stuff like that, what this would have been like if it had been released. Because it's not great, but if they would have treated this like a more of a real movie and put some actual budget behind it and did a couple of rewrites and put it out in the 90s, they really could have done something cool with this, especially when like Blade was sort of budding and not really out yet. Like, this could have been like the first cool Marvel movie if they would have put their actual money behind it, but they didn't.
Yeah.
If this was released, it definitely would have made money.
Oh,
Like,
it would have made money, but if it was released in this form, it would not have made as much money. I don't know.
if it was released in this form, it still would have made money.
And in the end, you wonder, like, was the payout from Avi and the Marvel gang, was that more to them than the box office probably would have been? You know, that's the big question in the end, you know. And when they took that payout, it might have just been like, look, this is more than we're going to make if we put this thing out. So let's just take the money and run.
There's pieces to it too, where it's like you watch it and you're like, the Thing looks fantastic in the film. You know, in my opinion, I think he looks really great. And
yeah, the Thing effects are really cool. They have a very expressive mouth. They talked about in the document. We talk about the documentary Doomed. It's kind of like a making of on this thing, but they talked about how the face is really expressive and it can do different emotions and different eyes and different mouths and that kind of thing. If you're interested in that effect, the team behind this effect actually went on to work on the X-Files and Buffy. So you have like a very similar kind of character effects in those shows, the cheesy but fun effects.
He looks good for the time, but it's really distracting how like his face, it doesn't look like his face doesn't really change. Like, he always looks angry.
And also I noticed that like sometimes his mouth doesn't synchronize.
Yeah. It doesn't look like it's moving much. It looks fine for the time, but it's not like
they definitely were going for like look alone. You know, like when you see him standing there not talking, he looks like the Thing, the blazing blue pants and everything like that. They clearly were like, let's just take how he looked in the comic and put him on the screen.
The stretching effects for Reed, that's the one that actually like genuinely looks fine. Like, they managed to make that look good for the time. And the invisibility effects aren't terrible either. It's Johnny Storm when he's flying that really is atrocious.
Oh,
Yeah, that's where you start to think, is this a real movie? Like, am I supposed to be watching this right now? Because I don't know if this is a real effect right here.
When he does flame on and it's just his hand, it looks mostly fine. Also, this movie has one of the funniest scenes in any of these, maybe any Marvel movie, when he says flame on and then his hand is on fire. He says, flame off, flame off.
That was so funny. Yeah. And then also, let's not forget the line, "There you are, the Fantastic Four."
Oh, God.
That line
Okay,
is amazing.
something we got to talk.
Say that again?
Something we got to talk about this movie is the score. It sounds like it's like a Lifetime or a Hallmark. Like the piano, the piano that plays, like when Alicia is like, Ben, no, and then they play this like it's like cheesy like Hallmark like piano, and I'm like, and then she says the best part of the movie is when they play that cheesy piano from a Hallmark movie, and she says, Ben, no, and then he says, Doom, it's clobbering time.
So
I actually started to cry.
Interesting you should mention that, because in the documentary they mentioned that in the documentary that the two composers, first off, they kept on bragging about them, saying like what an amazing job they did, and then in the documentary they talk about the fact that they basically paid out of pocket because no one was like willing to pay them. They paid out of pocket in order to get to come there and like record with a 40 plus orchestra that they had actually performing.
The theme isn't terrible. Like the theme is actually pretty fine.
Yeah.
It's the actual score scene to scene that's pretty rough. Like the opening credits, you hear the music and you're like, is this gonna be good? No.
It's not good, but there are things about it that are good. Like the actors are, the actors are good. They're doing what they can. And I feel like the best part of this movie is Dr. Doom. Like,
absolutely.
He's so cheesy, but it almost kind of works because it feels like, I haven't read a ton of Dr. Doom. I've really only read Secret Wars, but from what I've read, he is sympathetic, but at the same time, he has the vibe of just that cheesy evil villain. Where he has like a lair and stuff. Like the whole thing where he has that doctor in this movie and then he strangles him, that feels like something out of the comics.
Yeah, you mentioned his lair. I love that he has an actual giant throne he's sitting on. It feels like they just truly embrace the aesthetic of the comic book. And a lot of these other movies that we'll talk about today feel like they're trying to run away from the source material in different ways and try and be like as unlike the comics as you can possibly be. And this is just like, no, let's just look at those cool Jack Kirby images and just do them. Even if it doesn't really make sense, it'll look cool. And that's kind of all we need is like something you can put in a trailer that'll make it look like a real movie, and I think that kind of pays off. You get these really cool production designs, these sets and these costumes that I think look really good on the screen.
I really hope.
It really sucks that Stan Lee disliked this movie as much as he did, because apparently he was like, in the documentary he talks about how, when they would ask Stan Lee about what he thinks of the Fantastic Four, he would straight up say, I don't think that much of it. And he was just not a fan of it at all. And it's unfortunate, and I think that's part of the reason why they decided just not to do the movie. They were like,
and I think part of it was like Stan Lee was also trying to like kill this thing because he is Marvel. Like he wanted the rights back to Fox, like everybody else did at Marvel, right? And he was coming to set every day, bringing them donuts, talking to the cast, giving advice on set, and then all of a sudden he doesn't like it, and it feels, he in the end is like part of the Marvel machine. At this point, he's trying to disparage the image of the film and the fans and get it to not be released. So I think when he goes on at Comic-Con and says, "Oh, I have no hope for that movie," it feels two-faced because it feels like he's trying to downplay it so that Marvel can get those rights back.
I feel like this is the perfect time to mention, I know this isn't about comic books, the show, but I feel like this is a good time to mention the whole situation that happened with him and Kirby. Like there's a viral tweet or social media post that went viral when Vanessa Kirby was officially cast, and they said, wow, finally a Kirby will be credited in a Marvel movie. And
That's really good.
it's funny, but it's depressing as shit because it's true.
You know,
Like,
when you look back at Marvel, Stan Lee is important to it. Like he provided a lot of the backgrounds and the origin stories and some of the dialogue and stuff, but a lot of the aesthetic we think about for a lot of these characters, especially the Fantastic Four, that is Jack Kirby. Like the images you remember from the X-Men animated series, those are inspired by Jack Kirby. Those are not inspired by Stan Lee necessarily, you know. And
yeah, like
I think that's you gotta keep the legacy of Jack Kirby alive. And that, yeah, people talk about Stan Lee like he's a hero and he just is never gonna lie, but in the end, he's a corporate guy from New York who wants to make money too.
yeah.
Mhm.
I mean, like, you still can see him as a hero in ways, but it's okay to admit that your heroes didn't do everything. They didn't only do good things. And
Yeah.
it is unfortunately true from what it sounds like, from what I've read, that he did kind of fuck over Jack Kirby, which happens a lot in comic books. It's happened at DC.
And I really appreciate that. I think the internet fandom, how it's revived this movie too, I think it's done a lot to keep Jack Kirby's name alive in the conversation and make him be hand to hand with Stan Lee, especially now that Stan Lee is gone. I think there's been an effort to put both of them, you know, in memory as part of the founding of Marvel. And I think that's definitely it ties into this movie as well, because like we said, we love to talk about Marvel and Stan Lee as these great things, creating beautiful art we love so much or whatever, but they'll kill a movie and they'll kill a career like it's nothing.
Sure.
So it's gonna be really sad when some 80-year-old comic book fan watches the new Fantastic Four and he's like, "Oh, finally they're crediting Kirby," but then he sees it's listing who played Sue Storm.
Do you guys? I wonder about the legacy of this movie. We talked about how much it's been revived by the internet. I would love to see if there's like, you know, a Council of Reeds in this arc of the MCU, or if like the Secret Wars really does kind of bring in a bunch of variants of other characters. It would be fun to see these guys come back in some capacity, even if it's just a tiny little cameo to be like, you know what, we screwed you guys over. We're sorry about that. Let's get you guys in this movie.
Even a cameo would be fun, but realistically, like, you could like make that part of the plot of one of these Avengers movies where like the Council of Reeds are involved. Like, how fun would it be to see Alex Hyde White, Miles Teller, Ian Gruff, however you say his name, maybe even throw John Krasinski in there. Like, it'd be a lot of fun.
Oh yeah.
It would be, and I think when you're doing something like Secret Wars or a whole arc of multiverse, like when you're trying to throw back and be like, here's the people who brought us here, whether it's the Fox X-Men or it's the Wesley Snipes Blade, you can't forget these movies too. You know, these movies, whether we like them or not, whether it's Fantastic Four or Captain America, you know, those 90s VHS schlock, that was Marvel for a while, you know, and you can't forget that.
And I think that it would be a good opportunity to do the Fantastic Four version of like a No Way Home and not actually have been a Fantastic Four, like a fun little arc in Avengers. But I do want to mention that I think this movie is important to watch, not just in terms of Fantastic Four, but in terms of if you're a fan of comic book films in general, because it really, I feel like in a lot of ways, it really did pave the way of like how these movies, like in a lot of maybe not structure, but like
tone, like the approach to the characters. And well, I think something that will follow the Fantastic Four throughout these movies is like they almost always feel like they're just like a couple of years too earlier from where they need to be, you know, like they're so close to getting what they need to get there, and then like the genre just unfortunately surpasses them right before they can do it. And
and you know, everyone was talking about how like Superman was like, it feels like sort of like the definitive comic book movie because they said it's like a comic come to life. Honestly, after seeing the 90s film of Fantastic Four, I kind of feel like it brought me back to that moment of when I was a kid reading some of these comics, sitting there and like seeing the things say it's clobbering time on the pages and all this type of stuff, like, and all the other goofy stuff that happened in these comics. It reminded me so much of it. I was like, you know, maybe this is the most comic accurate film of all time.
It's definitely up there for me. It feels like you said, it has that cheesy page turn kind of effect, and I really like that about it. Ari, do you have any final thoughts?
His face, it looks like it looks cartoony, and even the voice, it's so like deep, dumb. It's clobbering time. it's
That
interesting.
actor went on to be in one of my biggest guilty pleasures, Master of Disguise.
Oh.
Just had to throw that out there.
Yeah, there
I
was an
don't-
odd effect on the Thing's voice in there. You know, it was like a
Yeah,
digital effect on there.
very
For sure.
odd. It's interesting that with Alicia, we went from white woman, black woman, and Fantastic no woman, and in the new one, potentially we'll see if she's in the new one.
Oh yeah.
That'd be, it's an important character. I'm sure she'll show up at that in the new
I
one
do.
at some point.
I will say if that is who Natasha Lyonne is playing, that's good. That's a good get.
All right. If you guys have any other thoughts on the '90s Fantastic Four, we're ready to move forward in time here by a couple years.
Oh, the age gap was
this-
pretty. The age gap was pretty wild.
Yeah, that was an interesting decision. Reed is like at the most generous way you can possibly say it. Reed's probably like 20 in this,
How
right?
old is he supposed to be in that beginning sequence? Because he looks 30.
He does look old. He's in college, you know. Maybe you could say he's a gifted student, you know. He ascended quickly through the grades. Maybe he's like, 16.
Yeah, I will say on Michael's point, I will say this movie does kind of feel comic booky in terms of like, I don't know, it's so cheesy. Like the doctor is like, bring him downstairs, and I'm like, this does feel like it kind of like
it does. It straight up feels like page to screen.
Like our friend Nolan was saying how he hates reading pre-2000s comic books because the way the dialogue is horrible. This movie felt like pre-2000s comic book dialogue.
And that's the comics I grew up with. Was
Keep
like
him alive.
Pre-2000 comics and all. I'm not saying I'm an old man, obviously, but like I was raised right, and those were the comics that I ended up getting as a kid a lot. And
I'd really hope that with Downey Jr. they take notes from at least the aesthetic of this Doctor Doom, like you said, the throne, the lair. Like, imagine the first time we see Doctor Doom in Doomsday. Imagine they don't really introduce him. They just like the second scene of the movie. They just cut to Downey Jr. in his lair.
He's just sitting on a throne.
Yeah, like how amazing would that be?
Dude, that would be the post. If that's the post-credit scene, I will flip my tots straight up.
I think I think at this point he's probably just gonna be in an after credit scene.
Yeah, we will see for sure.
Well, yeah, we'll see. So should we move on to
which I do want to preface with the 2005 2007 reviews, that I do want to preface that in the documentary they were saying, oh yeah, they came and approached us and said that they were working on in a couple of years they're going to be working on like a bigger budgeted version of the film. I was like, a couple of years? It was like over 10 years later.
Yeah, I definitely want to talk about that. I have that written here for sure because I want to bring up that conversation as in here. Yeah, they said, in a couple of years, because the thing is, the reason that they squashed this thing is because Marvel was like, let's go. We got to get this thing. It's the 90s. You know, we got to take over the 90s. We had all these plans. And the 90s Fantastic Four, they wanted to do a 90s Fantastic Four, Silver Surfer spinoff, all of these things. And then, of course, that did not come to fruition. So the Fantastic Four curse begins now. The revenge of the 90s Fantastic Four.
This segment is going to be pretty rough.
Yeah, it's but these are my nostalgia. Okay, this is the one that I grew up with watching as a kid.
There was some interesting attempts in the 90s where like Chris Columbus was attached at one point, but he decided to leave to go work on some, YA wizard thing. Yeah. You never heard of it, I don't think, but he went on to do that.
God.
So, and then you had Raja Gosnell, I think is how you say his name. He was going to do this, and then he said, you know what? I think Scooby-Doo sounds better. So he went off and he made Scooby-Doo with some guy named James Gunn. So he's pulling from the superhero genre.
It's funny that Chris Columbus was attached to Fantastic Four because Steven Spielberg, early in the rumors of the new one, there was a rumor of Steven Spielberg.
Yeah, this is a franchise filled with like what ifs. Chris Columbus really did a lot for Harry Potter, and in the 90s especially was on a run. It would have been very interesting to see what he could do with that.
Wait, did you say that James Gunn
in the documentary
one of these?
I mentioned that Raja Gosnell who was going to direct this, ended up leaving to go do Scooby-Doo after reading James Gunn's script.
Oh,
So
interesting.
he
In the
goes and leaves
documentary-
this.
in
with
the
Scooby-Doo.
It's ironic
they
that
even mentioned-
James Gunn tried to get Matthew Lillard to do Plastic Man and what are Reed Richards' superpowers?
Stretching.
That's funny. But
What were you saying?
in the documentary, though, they even mentioned that like Wes Craven was going to do Doctor Strange, all these different like stuff in the
Yeah,
90s.
Marvel had a whole cinematic universe that was ready to go in the 90s that just collapsed in on itself. And
Yeah.
I almost feel like it was vengeance from beyond the grave of the 90s Fantastic Four. You know, it was like, no, you're not going to kill us and then launch your own universe. We're going to kill your universe from the karma beyond the grave. But yeah, another interesting fact is Peyton Reed, future Ant-Man director, was attached to this for a very long time, and his writer was Twin Peaks graduate Mark Frost, who wrote a whole script for Fantastic Four that's out there somewhere in the universe.
Peyton Reed, actually, I shouldn't be just mentioning something random, but he actually did direct the Weird Al show.
Wow.
That was right.
And then
Yeah.
Peyton Reed was the last big name that was attached, and that Twin Peaks writer Mark Frost did a big rewrite on the script, and it seemed like it was going to happen. But then, of course, this doesn't happen. And then in 2004, finally, Fox is ready to give up on this thing. And then Fox execs see an early cut of Tim Story's Taxi, and they say, "Oh, we got to get this guy Tim Story." So they,
Who watches Taxi? And then it's like we gotta get this.
we got to get this guy.
Oh my God. Oh jeez.
I don't understand the rationale of Fox here, but yeah, they saw that early cut of Taxi. They were like, "Oh my God, this is going to change the world. We've got to get this guy."
Wow. Oh yeah.
What the fuck?
Wow.
Yeah, so they sign on Taxi's genius director Tim Story to helm the Fantastic Four. Simon Kinberg, who will be here for a while in the Marvel circles, he ends up doing a rewrite on this thing after watching The Incredibles because he was like, "Oh, our script is way too similar to that. We've got to rewrite." So they go and they change stuff. So people talk about The Incredibles as like the perfect Fantastic Four film, and I always wonder, like, what would this movie have been like if they didn't have to react to The Incredibles? You know, what from The Incredibles was in this movie? That's always kind of fascinated me.
Yeah. It's and these movies both I put them both here together because they're like, you know, we can kind of review both in one.
Yeah, I don't have strong.
section
I mean,
here.
I think one is better than the other, but I think it's worth talking about this as like a whole era together, right? Because they're both led by Tim Story. They're both led by the same cast,
Yeah.
and they have very, very similar like styles and tones. So yeah, you said you have the very, very nostalgic feelings for this, Michael. So I want you to start gush about these movies. Tell me why they're amazing and why we're both wrong.
So the thing is, as a kid, I had full-on toys from this movie. I still have them. I have an Invisible Woman toy. I have a Mr. Fantastic toy. Although what's funny is when I was a kid, the Mr. Fantastic, he came with like multiple heads. So he has like the one that's like a normal head and the one that's the flat head. Well, I put the flat head on Mr. Fantastic. And I took off his normal head, and my Wolverine from action figure head popped off. So I put Mr. Fantastic's head on Wolverine's body. So it's now like that actor is Wolverine, basically. So I was like, oh, okay, that's interesting. And then I had like a Human Torch action figure. I had, you know, I was collecting all the toys. This was around the time I was starting to read a little bit of the comics and such, and started to get into a little bit more Fantastic Four stuff. And then, yeah, I saw these movies. I don't know if I ever saw them in theaters or if they're at home, but I know I saw these movies when I was young, and they were definitely fun guilty pleasures of mine. There's stuff that, as a kid, I enjoyed, I really loved, and you know, the banter between Johnny and the thing. As a kid, I loved it, but looking back at it, I have some issues with it. There's some other things in there, like as a kid, some of the Jessica Alba's naked jokes was funny to me at the time as a kid, but looking back as an adult, I'm like, oh, why did I laugh at this? This is kind of, she's like being overly sexualized for like the male gaze here.
It's like every single joke is like, oh, she's naked.
This is like,
that was like 5 times in the movie. I'm like, we can make another joke.
Yeah, it's just to say, okay, so there's other things like that just don't hold up quite as well. And then there are things that do hold up. Like I think that while the Silver Surfer effects look really good in Rise of Silver Surfer, I actually think the 2005 movie has overall better effects than the 2007 movie. And I think that the 2005 movie, looking at the overall effects of them, I was like, they don't look bad. And I think The Thing looks really good in terms of like, I think they use practical like for him and everything, which is how you're supposed to do the Thing effects. That to me works really well when they do like a mix of practical and CG, and I think that's what they did here, a mix of practical and CG. So yeah, I had fun with these. And are they good movies? I want to preface this by saying no, they are not good movies. I do not think on a quality standpoint they are good. Can I sit back, maybe have enough beers or alcohol on me to get a little tipsy and have a fun time with them? Yes, I can do that and have a fun time. So that's just how I kind of see these films.
Remember when there was that supposed leaked photo of Michael Chiklis in the Thing costume for Deadpool 3, but then he said that was fake and then he was never in the movie?
Well, he actually does go chickless for a little while in this movie, you know, because when he's a rock person.
That's terrible.
That's pretty bad. I do not want you to say that again.
I want to bring up EDM's comment in here. The way 70s dudes had Princess Leia, 80s dudes had Sarah Connor, millennial gays had Chris Evans in the aughts. Flame on indeed. Yeah. Maybe this movie was my bioawakening. I didn't even know it, you know?
This Fantastic Four franchise ended the year before the MCU began, and now the Fantastic Four First Steps is, in a way, maybe saving the MCU.
Yeah, it's interesting because you mentioned both these movies are not good, but I think when you watch them, you absolutely, I think, see the origin of the MCU in both of these. I think the first one, you see the movie really, really struggling to figure out its tone. It wants to be funny. It wants to be, fun. It really, I think, struggles to balance those two. But I think the Marvels learned from that. Like when you see the first movie, the tone is not all that different than, Iron Man, where they really wanted to lean into the comedy, we're not like the comic books. We're kind of like goofing on it even, and the sequel especially, I think, has the structure of a Marvel Cinematic Universe movie. It has a third act of an MCU movie. It has the witty banter of the MCU movies. And I think these movies, absolutely, if they didn't come out, there would be no MCU as we know it in terms of the style and the tone of it. And this first movie was a critical failure, but it made money. And it was, until Black Panther came out, the highest grossing comic book movie from a Black director. And it's still, I think, up there, with those 2 Black Panther movies. So I think it broke new ground in that regard. But I think, like I said, it established the tone and the style and the structure that I think MCU absolutely learned from.
Imagine a world where the rights situation didn't happen, and then they just brought these guys into the MCU.
Yeah, that would have been interesting.
It is.
Imagine all these guys showed up in the Avengers.
It is unfortunate. Tim Story gets like almost no credit for basically being that Black director that kind of pushed the superhero genre forward and everything, and that's a really big deal. So I think that you should get more credit for that. And I find it interesting that over the years, and you can definitely see this when it comes to Deadpool and Wolverine reception. When Deadpool and Wolverine came out, and they brought back Chris Evans as Johnny in that, and then you had the whole like farewell to the Fox stuff.
Mm-hmm.
You can definitely
that was painful to watch.
There are people who are like, they were people like crying in my theater and everything at that, because this was, for a lot of people, this was their superhero movies. Like this was their legacy growing up. Like, yeah, were they good? No, but this is what we had, and this is what we had to live with. And
Yeah, I think we absolutely owe a huge debt to these movies, and
Yeah.
they get forgotten because the first one came out the same year as Batman Begins. The second one comes out right before The Dark Knight, and they just get buried by those movies. But in the way that those movies pioneered like the serious superhero movie, I think you also got to look at the goofy superhero movie. We talked about the '90s one and how much fun we had with it, and how it embraces the silliness and doesn't try and be too serious. And I think we're seeing the comic book genre start to turn back to that again. We saw a long time post Dark Knight of like these very serious, like there's quips and stuff like that, but they're not super goofy. They're not like people aren't in crazy costumes, colors everywhere, and that kind of thing. But we're starting to see it come back, and the aesthetic of the new one, the 2025 one, seems like it's drawing a little bit from the colors and the brightness of these movies. So its legacy does live on. And if you're going to talk about cameos and like if there's ever going to be a Council of Reeds, this guy's showing up. If there's ever going to be, Human Torch, I mean, he already was in Deadpool 3, but if they're ever going to bring him back again, it's probably going to be him. And they already have paid the legacy to this cast in a way. So this one has lived on in that regard, but I think it does deserve more credit than it gets in terms of pioneering this whole genre and how we know it.
Oh yeah, no, I agree. I think it absolutely deserves more credit there, and I think that it's just overall, I think that this movie, for all of its faults, I think there's still stuff that works in it, like we talked about. I will say Chris Evans is one of those actors we talked about him just now. He is one of those actors that, other than Captain America, he is the exact same character in every single movie, you know. But like his Johnny is the same as his Knives Out role. It's the same as his Ghosted role. It's the same as his Red One role. It's like the same thing,
except for Materialists.
That one I haven't got around to seeing, but yeah, that one I am definitely.
I think he's absolutely the best part of these movies, and
yeah, he's very good casting for.
Yeah, he's perfectly has. If he was, yeah,
so I was talking to Nolan, who's our another channel member of ours, and he was talking to me about on a Fan Force Day commentary, which you guys will see soon. He was talking about how the Johnny in these films bugs him because he feels like he's just too much of an asshole, and I could see his point. He was saying like it, by the second film, the fact he still fucking hates the Thing, and he's like going and railing into him and everything, still that he's railing into Ben. It's like this is the second film now, and it's like you're still doing this.
Yeah, he doesn't really have an arc, He shows up in the second film. He still has supermodels all around him and that kind of stuff. But it's a fun casting for sure.
But you also don't want to go too far in the other direction where he's just like not an asshole at all, really.
Yeah, I think that's something that's good about the characters is like they're not perfect. They're not like doing everything right, and I think Johnny in this movie, he's a perfect like 2000s arrogant douchey guy who was making out with supermodels all the time and doesn't take it seriously. And I feel like I'm worried about cleaning up that character too much, but I think it's cool that he's an asshole in this. Although I would have appreciated more of an arc by the sequel.
Because there was an interview with the actors playing him in the new one where he basically said, "Oh, we're putting the womanizer, the misogyny, we're putting that away," and I'm like, I hope not. Like,
yeah, that's who Johnny is. It's like,
yeah, he's an asshole. Like that scene in the first one where they cut to him like skiing or snowboarding, whatever, and they're just playing that song. I'm like, oh my god, what the?
That's peak early 2000s right there. That is like one of the highlights of my. When I watched that, my brain lit up with the nostalgia cores in my head. I was like, oh, it's good because I remember this. Like that was like burned into my brain so deeply. I couldn't even believe it. It was like awakened my childhood. Truly, truly did.
Yeah, imagine in the new one, he's just being nice and friendly and not misogynistic to women, and he's listening to like Billie Eilish.
They could do that. They could switch him up and try to do that, because I feel like the thing with the 2000s is when these movies were coming out, and I feel like that's why they had a lot of the Jessica Alba jokes I talked about and other stuff like that, is I felt like during this time, we were getting Transformers around the same time, we were getting all these other movies. I feel like there was in PG-13 films like this, there was less of a need to go, I guess, PC is where I'm trying to go with it. Like, is that now I feel the need. Now I feel like Hollywood and Marvel and all them. I feel like they need to play it safe, you know. While movies like this were like, hey, you know, we can throw in a couple of these things. You know, it's a different time. You know, it's a different time period. But with today's day and age, I feel like people are kind of afraid to go do something like that. You know.
We would be remiss not to bring up Gillian McMahon, who recently passed away just a few days ago, who plays Dr. Doom in this. He is pretty good for what they're doing with him. You know, he's no 90s Doom, you know, but he plays that corporate evil pretty well and really hams it up, especially in the sequel. He's really cheesing it. So he's a really big part of my memories of these movies is him delivering some of those goofier lines and stuff like that, and him showing up in the sequel and being alive. And I always remember the trailer of him walking in the room and he's like alive again. And I was like, oh, he's gonna team up with the Fantastic Four. That's crazy. I gotta see this thing.
And then also Dr. Doom on a freaking Silver Surfer like surfboard, bro. Yeah, like
that third act in the Silver Surfer really does turn it to me to be like, okay, maybe this is awesome, because the final battle is just so ridiculous. They're fighting over a tornado and stuff like that, and I'm like, you know what? This is better than like a lot of the third acts in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. I won't lie to you.
What's frustrating about Rise of the Silver Surfer is it's hyping up Galactus really well. Like, they're actually making you kind of afraid, and you feel bad for Silver Surfer, and then Galactus never shows up.
No, Galactus shows up. He's just a cloud. That's what it is.
Yeah, they were definitely absolutely setting that up for a Silver Surfer spinoff. Once again, they're going to do a Silver Surfer spinoff that this movie didn't do well. Like the first one made a lot of money. This one made like okay money, but it was not deemed profitable. So Fox.
But is he the cloud or is he in the cloud?
I think they were trying to say that he is the cloud because at one point you see the cloud like over the earth, and then they say he's here, you know, that kind of thing. Like, and then Silver Surfer has to fly up.
What was the reasoning behind that creative decision?
I believe it was budgetary restraints, because it would be hard to do Galactus and Silver Surfer in the same movie, and I think it was also, like we mentioned, the kind of a version in a post Batman Begins world to be too cosmic and too weird with it. They felt like they had to kind of ground themselves a little bit. And the movie is telling us that it is the cloud. But I love to pretend that he's in the clouds. You know, he's there. He's hiding, you know?
Yeah. As much as I love the Nolan films, if I could go back in time, I do wish they were more comic booky.
I do like how at the opening, when we first see the cloud Galactus, you see it go over the planet and it makes the shape of the Galactus head. Like the shadow makes the shape of his horns and the design.
Yeah, it's like your only shot of Galactus. I'm so happy we're finally going to get an actual Galactus, good or bad. Even if this movie is terrible, at least I'm getting Galactus. You know?
Yeah, it's definitely not. It's not going to be terrible. I would bet a lot of money against that.
We mentioned that Chris Evans was in. Oh, you go ahead, and then I'll move on to some less.
I had to correct you. Was his last name is Mick Mahone.
Mick Mahone.
Yeah, and it's ironically a commenter also misspelled Robert Pattinson. It's Robert Pattinson. Just wanted to.
Yeah, EDM shouts out that Chris Evans was in Snowpiercer with Bong Joon-ho, and hopes he keeps exploring interesting directors. He was also in I already mentioned Materialist this year.
Oh yeah, Snowpiercer was another role.
He's great in Snowpiercer.
He's great in Snowpiercer. Yeah, that's true. So I guess he just has to have the right roles, really. So, what do y'all think of Doug Jones in the part of Silver Surfer? You know, he's a really great actor. Abe Sapien from Hellboy, you know, Shape of Water, all these other great movies that he has appeared in. What do y'all think of him as Silver Surfer? And what do y'all think of the effects? Because I know a lot of people thought it was groundbreaking effects when it was out, for sure.
Yeah, I think the effects do look pretty good. They feel reminiscent of the Terminator 2 kind of effects, and it looks really alive. It doesn't necessarily look perfect, but it absolutely looks like something that is there that they're interacting with, you know. And I think it helps that it's not a human necessarily, so it can look kind of off, and it makes sense, you know. And I like Doug Jones, the look of Doug Jones. Doug Jones, I've actually met a few times over the years. Really extremely nice dude. Loves to interact and take pictures. And so I have a really great picture of us together. I would love to post that sometime on the Instagram. But
I couldn't figure out what he reminded me of, and then that's it. That was Terminator.
yeah, Terminator for sure. And I like the look of it, and I appreciate the look of this new one, but it almost doesn't look as good.
Yeah.
I think the new one definitely looks like an improvement. Like it does look like something that will come out in 2025. It actually looks pretty incredible. I've seen people ragging on it online and saying it looks bad or whatever, and I'm like,
I think it's because it looks like, and I have this issue too. I think the newest design looks like an effect. Like it looks like it's CG. While to me, looking at something like The Thing, like I know he's going to be CG in the movie, but you look at him and you're convinced that those are real rocks and such.
I don't know. I watched that clip, her introduction scene that they released part of, and I was like, this looks. I when I was watching the scene.
I thought you said you were
itself,
avoiding clips.
What?
I thought you said you were avoiding clips.
This was like 2 weeks ago.
Oh, okay.
I said I'm avoiding them now.
Okay.
Do you guys have any
not
final thoughts
then.
regarding the 2000s movies before we can move on? So we're definitely going to talk about our anticipation for the 2025 movie.
Oh yeah.
Anything else you got, Ari? I know you're more negative on these than we are. So what are you feeling?
Michael Chiklis is good. Maybe not great. One thing I gotta mention. When I watched the first one, I was like, I wasn't familiar with like a lot of stuff in the comics. So the whole Alicia character was new to me. And I was like, I like this. I like the actors they played. And then in the second one, they're just kind of together. You don't see any of their development. I'm like, I wanted to see them see more of their development together.
Yeah.
Also, the score is not particularly memorable. I can't even remember what the theme is.
Yeah, the score, I mean, it's not memorable or anything, but I will say I love how colorful this film is. At the end of the day, feels very colorful and vibrant, like Fantastic Four should be. And I think that, they all do well in their parts. I think they all play their parts well. And I think that for the most part, the effects hold up. There are some really bad effects. There are some really good effects. And it's like a good amalgamation of both. But
I can't believe Mark Frost is credited as right. What the fuck?
Yeah, he did a big rewrite on this movie.
What
so
the
there's
hell?
some Twin Peaks in there somewhere.
You know who should have been Reed is you know who.
Kyle MacLachlan. Throw him in there.
Can you imagine that?
He actually would have been a perfect Reed. Not gonna lie.
Can you imagine that?
That would be awesome.
Oh my gosh, that would have been otherworldly.
I'm trying to see who the composer was. John Ottman. That's a really good composer, but
not very distinct score. No,
honestly,
I feel like the 90s movie had a poor score, but at least it had a really good theme. So at least I prefer the theme. Like there's a good theme in the 90s one, so at least there's that. This one doesn't really have that.
And overall, I think watching it, I never thought these words would come out of my mouth. I think I respect more the legacy that the 2000s ones hold and the nostalgia, for me and for some of the other people who grew up in 2000s. But I think overall, I like the 90s one more as a comic reader, and
who did you guys like more in the role of Alicia? Kerry Washington or whoever played her in the Fantastic Four?
It's hard not to go with Scandal herself, Kerry Washington.
Yeah.
You watch that movie and you're like, oh look, it's Olivia Pope dating the Thing.
She was good in the movies too. Kerry Washington, I thought she was.
Yeah. I like her. I think she's really good. Yeah. Bigger back, Multiverse of Madness.
Hopefully they don't whitewash her in the new one.
Who knows?
Hopefully not. But yeah,
all the critics who have seen it know.
Well, yeah, it's true. They would know.
Yeah, but I think that it would be great to see her back. It'd be great to see maybe Jessica Alba show up as like another Invisible Woman again years later. See some other actors from these franchises just have another appearance again.
I definitely think we're seeing at least one of these people before the end of this Secret Wars thing that's going on, right? I think we're probably not seeing the end of Chris Evans' Human Torch. We're probably going to see this Reed Richards again at some point. I'm leaning into the Council of Reed's happening, but I think we'll see more of these characters.
Yeah.
And speaking of Miles Teller, are you guys ready to move on to the best movie of the bunch here?
The most underrated comic book film ever made.
So, like I mentioned,
that's good.
The first Fantastic Four did pretty well, and then the second one came out, didn't do nearly as well. So Fox very quickly pulls the plug. It was only in 2009 they said they were going to do a reboot. Only a couple years, like 2 years after the one came out, they said, "Okay, we're rebooting right now," and that didn't happen. So once again, Fantastic Four falls into a decade of production hell, and people coming on and getting off and coming on and getting off, until ultimately in 2012, when they signed Chronicle breakout hit Josh Trank, he joins the film. His pitch is that it's going to be like the Ultimate Comics meets Cronenberg. And he says, look, I don't know comics that well, but I know this guy who does, and he's going to write it with me. So he hires on this pretty unexperienced friend of his who knows comics well to write the script. And the two of them end up having really intense conflicts about the tone and whether it's supposed to be funny or serious. Josh Trank is going through some kind of like depressive episode and is insisting that all these characters hate their lives and are like really, really depressed and don't get along at all. And at some point, Stan Lee even does like a wellness check on Josh Trank and says like, hey man, you all right? There's something going on that we got to talk about. Real? That's real. Stan Lee does a wellness check on Josh Trank. Josh Trank is kind of having this severe mental health crisis on set. I think he was out of his wits in terms of he just took on a project way too big and he was very young. And I think he made some mistakes. He's not an angel. He did some poor things on set. He got in fights with Miles Teller. He apparently trashed his hotel room and things like that. But a lot of stress on this very, very inexperienced director that ultimately ended up having to leave the film. And if you watch it, you can tell because about halfway through, maybe like 75% of the way through, there's just this enormous tonal and style shift where you feel like you're just all of a sudden watching a different movie. Like the first 75% of this thing is serious, and then you get like this totally different ending. And that's because Josh Trank had this kind of falling out with the studio / mental health crisis and ended up leaving the project.
This might be a crazy theory, but maybe the scene at the beginning of the film where Ben Grimm's brother walks up to him and says, hey, it's clobber time, and slaps right in the face. Maybe that's actually based on Miles Teller and Josh Trank's interactions with each other.
That's possible because I do know in the Josh Trank version of this movie, it's clobbering time comes from Ben playing baseball with his friends. So that thing of his brother hitting him in the face, that was, a Simon Kinberg edition. Strange edition.
Simon Kinberg just saw them going at it and he was like, oh shit, I need to put this in the movie.
Yeah, I mentioned Simon Kinberg did rewrites on the first Fantastic Four. He came back and once again did rewrites on this guy. And after Trank left, Kinberg essentially stepped in and directed the last few months of this.
Because he worked on Daredevil, and Daredevil premiered the same year.
And I don't remember when Dark Phoenix was, but it was not super long after this.
Dark Phoenix was, I think that was 2019.
I have an unpopular opinion here.
Oh,
I would actually watch this film again over having to watch Dark Phoenix again.
The thing is, this film is pretty boring, but it's also just there's moments that are so unfathomably ridiculously dumb that you crack up laughing, and some of the lines in here are just unbelievable, man. We can't move past this movie without quoting some of this movie, right? And
oh yeah,
hey,
Ari, give me your favorite
quote. Time.
Adolf, been a long time.
Adolf, that you?
I could not, but no, the best. Okay, you gotta let me say it. The best line, maybe one of the best lines in the entire history of Marvel films, is when Sue Storm and Doom and Reed are working on some science thing, and then she just says, "We got Dr. Doom over here."
Oh my god! Yeah, so I was in the commentary, right? And when I was in the commentary, it was my first time watching this film fully from actually start to finish. I've only ever seen like the first like 20-ish minutes of the film, but I never actually saw the whole film all the way through. My battery was dying on my remote, so I went, grabbed the new battery, come back, and the moment I come back and put my headphones back on and listening to the movie again, is when she says, "We got Dr. Doom over here." I was like, "What the hell?" It was amazing. Yeah,
It's
You
a shocking
gotta-
watch.
someone-
Because the
what?
movie is so boring, and then it just interrupts you with the dumbest dialogue you've ever heard. You like it wakes you up.
So-
You're starting to doze off, and she says, "Dr. Doom over here." You're like, "Did she just say that, or am I having a nightmare?"
Someone's got to make a meme of that and then cut to Tim Robinson in Friendship.
Also, did y'all notice that like this is when y'all would notice that there is what is regular shot scenes and what are reshot scenes, because there's a lot of
Well,
reshots.
yeah,
A lot of them, especially towards the end.
But did you notice?
once they have the body horror sequence in the facility and
Yeah.
cut to 1 year later, that's when you're like, this is a completely different movie.
Yeah, you
But-
talk about the Cronenberg influence, that body horror sequence. Not to interrupt you, but just I want to mention that while we're on it. That body horror sequence
yeah.
where they first get their powers and they come back to Earth, it's great. Like that, there's this 10-minute sequence in here where you start getting convinced, like, is this about to turn around and be awesome? Like, did I watch this for a good reason? And then it turns out no. But there's that one really, really great sequence where I feel like you're sold on what Josh Trank could have given us if he was able to do the movie he wanted to do. And it's on him and on the studio in certain parts, but that sequence alone makes me just really, really wish we could have gotten Josh Trank's real version of this movie.
Yeah, I'd like to know, for the sake of this conversation, who was talked to about doing this before him.
That I didn't really see much. I can look into it, but
While I'm on it though, I wanted to what I was trying to mention earlier is, did y'all notice? And this is when you know that the reshoots were happening, or what scenes were reshot, which ones weren't. Did y'all notice the Kate Mara hair change throughout the movie? So
yeah, that's the big change when she becomes a wig wearer. All of a sudden, the movie's a totally
Yeah.
different genre.
it's like she's
Wait,
wearing these. She'll automatically go from like dirty blonde hair to like bleach blonde, and it goes back and forth throughout the movie. It's just like so great.
Adrian Brody was in consideration for Mr. Fantastic prior to this movie going into production. There wasn't really a director attached, but Akiva Goldsman was on as a producer, and Michael Green was on for writing the script. And then they didn't
Adrian
really,
Brody.
really come to. Nothing really came to it until 2012 with Trank.
Directed by what's the director of The Brutalist name?
Honestly, Adrian Brody would have been not a bad choice for Reed Richards now. When you look at, how he is in some movies that he's been in for, I think he could have actually pulled off a Reed Richards really well. But
Speaking of reshoot scenes, Toby Kebbell, who plays Dr. Doom in this, he mentioned that his Doom was only seen for literally 3 shots in this movie, and you can go through and you can count which 3 shots have his Dr. Doom in them, and there's other shots that have the character in it, but it's a stand-in. And once you know what's a stand-in, it's so obvious. Like, his body is not the same. Like, his body moves differently. His legs are different.
Maybe we don't got Dr. Doom over here.
maybe we don't. But like, yeah, Toby Kebbell, he's a great actor. He was in the Planet of the Apes films and other stuff, but he's completely wasted here.
Who's the actor who plays Franklin Storm? Because I thought he was really good.
He is great. Yeah, he's oh god, I can't pull his name.
He was also in Luke Cage.
Reggie Cathy.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Luke
he was in the show Luke Cage. Yeah.
One thing I don't know this movie was scored by one of the best composers, Marco Beltrami, and I couldn't hum you the theme in terms of generic superhero themes. It's not the worst one. It is kind of hummable, but I don't even remember what it sounds like.
Dude, that's a lot of this movie. I don't remember this. I don't remember that, because it's like I watched it yesterday, and I don't even remember how Doom died. Like, I'm thinking, like, what happened again? Like,
one thing I can never forget, one thing that will stick with me my entire life is, and I gotta get the dialogue right, when Michael B. Jordan meets Doom and he says, "Is that Adolf?" long time. I was like, what? I was starting to doze off, and then I heard that. I was like, wait, what the fuck?
Michael B.
And
Jordan,
I was watching it with
Michael B.
Tristan,
Jordan was
and
so
I
hot
hadn't
in
seen
this
the
movie.
movie before. Like, this is like one of the only Marvel movies that when it came out, like I genuinely just didn't see it, and I legitimately could not believe the dialogue I was hearing. Like,
Yeah,
what is this movie?
it's
Yeah,
baffling.
EDM has mentioned they haven't seen it and they got very poor reception, 15% on Rotten Tomatoes. Letterboxd has a 1.3. That's really bad. And he says he can't bother to watch the film, but they may
You
end up
gotta
watching
watch
a
it. You
reaction
gotta
video.
watch it. You have to.
It's honestly sort of like Madam Web, where you watch something like a Madam Web and you're like,
Madam Web is a million times better than this film.
but even that, like, you can't believe the dialogue you're hearing. You can't believe all that. You're like, what the hell is going on? I can't believe this exists. And then you want to show all your friends Madam Web because of how much you just cannot believe it even exists.
Isabella Merced is Ben Grimm.
But I do want to mention though, Fant Four Stick is what we're calling it. We'll always call it that. We're never going to call it Fantastic Four because y'all wanted to call it Fant Four Stick. Still waiting for the sequel, Fanta Five Stick. But you know, that'll come at some point. But the thing I noticed about this movie is, one, it definitely feels the least like a Fantastic Four movie, and it feels more like you're watching a DC film. Like it was trying to be dark and brooding, and it felt like something in the DCEU that you would see. Almost like that's what I was kind of getting at. Like they were saying, oh, Snyder's Man of Steel is doing really good. They're about to do Batman v Superman. Like maybe we should capitalize off of this, and then they decided to do like their own version of that, basically. So,
yeah, you can feel like we talked about that conflict of like Batman Begins versus like a Fantastic Four, and I think this movie almost embodies that conflict really, really well, where it's trying to be like so many different things. Josh Trank mentioned that he was inspired by Batman Begins. You mentioned the DC connection. He really was leaning into the Batman Begins connection, where the writer was inspired by the Avengers, so he was really leaning into the Marvel side of things, and that weird combination of tones and the clashing of approaches, I think, really is prominent in this movie.
Yeah, you can definitely notice that in this one, and just everything here it's weird because they're like there are moments where overall the CGI of like the Thing is good. I don't like his design that much, but like the actual CGI of him is fine. I think the CGI of like the Human Torch is fine. I think there's a lot of like effects here
The
that are
CGI
fine.
for Thing is good, maybe even great, but he doesn't look good. Like
Yeah.
the look is very weird.
Yeah. I'm just like, and Nolan was saying in the commentary, they're like, what's funny is because he's in shorts in the actual like poster there, like, as you can see, but he's naked throughout like the entire movie. And Nolan was saying like, maybe if you would have put shorts on him, maybe he would have actually looked better as a design.
It wouldn't be so distracting
than if he was just fully naked the whole movie and everything. Like it's just really weird. Yeah.
An interesting sort of connection is Marco Beltrami scored this, and he scored A Quiet Place with John Krasinski, and John Krasinski, as we all know, played Reed Richards for 5 minutes.
I agree. That's going to be on the t-shirt. Madam Web was a million times better than this film.
I'm really, really curious what the future of this cast is, because it is so poorly received. In the 90s, when it's had this resurgence, and this one hasn't really had that, but it does have like the meme culture resurgence. I would be curious to see if any of these people show up in that regard. Like, I don't feel hopeful they will, but maybe
shows up in Secret Wars as Human Torch.
Michael B. Jordan with the Marvel history, I think, has this shot. Like Miles Teller, maybe if you're doing a Council of Reeds, I think you should throw Miles Teller in there, right? Like you shouldn't just erase one of these movies if you're going to be doing that gimmick, right? But
Michael B. Jordan was really well cast in this.
Yeah, but he had no chemistry at all with
Kate Mara. I mean, nobody had a chemistry.
No, that was uncomfortable. The Miles Teller, Kate Mara romance was just, I wanted to leave the room.
Actors like talking to each other. They weren't.
Yeah, there's a dress rehearsal.
Yeah. But Miles Teller, to me though, he also, I don't know, he never looked like a good Reed Richards to me because he always Miles Teller has that face you want to punch. He has that like douchey vibe to his face.
He doesn't when he's clean shaven, but when he has the when he's clean shaven, I could have a beer with him. But when he has that mustache and Top Gun Maverick, you just want to like strangle him.
Yeah.
You see that guy and you're like, where were you on January 6th, Miles? I just want to know.
But as soon as he shaves, you're like, what's up, my man?
and I just think maybe it's also the costumes too. Like, who thought, let's do a Fantastic Four movie and have them just wear black just shirts and pants.
Yeah, and this whole movie looks like that. It's so grim and colorless and without like almost any like life. Yeah, there's no life to it. And there's shots where it's like this shot is from the Ultimate comic book. Like he's tributing the comic, but like it doesn't make it good. You know, like it's from a comic book, sure, but the movie doesn't look very good most of the time. You know.
I mean, Donald Trump is from a comic book. That doesn't make him good. But yeah, remember when they made Trump MODOK in Marvel Comics?
Yeah.
They should do that in Secret Wars.
Ross, co-owner of the channel here, he's mentioning that he likes that in Michael B. Jordan's character, the typical situation would have his character be the one who's adopted, but they end up not doing that, and Kate Mara is the one who was adopted.
Yeah, that's I thought it was interesting. I do think it was stupid how much flack that got. There were people who were like, "Oh, you can't have a black Johnny Storm. You can't have a, like, oh, what are they supposed to be sisters? How'd that work?" And all this stuff. It's like
pre anti woke days.
Yeah. Josh Trank really, really wanted to cast a black actress as Invisible Woman as well, and have them be black. But the studio was just like in love with Kate Mara and was like, "We got to get Kate Mara in this thing. You got to put her in this thing." And I think that might have been the beginning of some of the conflict where he was like, "I don't want this person in my movie, but the studio is just telling me I have to put them in."
Yeah. But
I think she's not bad for the role, but like you said, there's not a lot of life to this cast. There's not a lot of charisma or chemistry.
Yeah. Imagine if this has been successful, and then we could have seen Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man crossover with it.
Oh man.
Yeah, I definitely want to mention that because they were not pretending this was not part of that universe. Like they were 100% acting like this was part of the X-Men universe and the Deadpool universe. Like when Deadpool revived.
Wait, really?
When Deadpool revived the Fox brand, like they did this photo shoot with the Deadpool 2 cast and the Fan 4-Stick cast and said they're going to cross over. It's going to happen. And they announced the crossover and said it's going to happen. These actors were going to be in Deadpool 2, and there were going to be scenes with them in it. And they end up, after this movie comes out and is just completely annihilated by fans and critics, they go and delete that photo shoot that had them all together and re-upload one that's just the Deadpool 2 cast and start
Is that photo
shoot
that. Out there?
It's got to be out there somewhere. But yeah, they essentially just deleted it and said, no, we didn't say that. That's not what we meant.
I liked how Ari mentioned Andrew Garfield as Spider-Man, because you look at this poster. Try to tell me that this poster is not trying to copy the Amazing Spider-Man 2 with its poster. Like that is straight up. That's Electro in the background right there. That's everything. They saw Amazing Spider-Man 2 and they're like, "Okay, let's basically do that and try to make that to." And I am someone who I think Amazing Spider-Man 2 is underrated. I'm actually a defender of it, but this is not supposed to be Amazing Spider-Man 2. It's supposed to be Fantastic Four. And Amazing Spider-Man 2 at least is like this, but this is a more lifeless version of it where it doesn't have any color, doesn't have any...
At least Amazing Spider-Man 2 is like fun, and the love interests and the main character have chemistry, and it has a good score. And
Amazing Spider-Man 2 is so much better. It's not even close to this.
Yeah.
And Ross brings up an interesting thing. In Spider-Man 2, there's supposed to be a Wolverine cameo without naming him. There was also a Wolverine cameo shot for, I think it was Rise of the Silver Surfer. It was either Rise of the Silver Surfer or Fantastic Four. They shot a
scene Wolverine cameo. Like, can't you watch it?
Yeah, you can find that on YouTube where Mr. Fantastic has a conversation with Sue Storm and he morphs his face into Hugh Jackman for a line,
It,
and you get a Hugh Jackman
You
cameo
know-
in the movie.
Speaking of that, it'd be kind of fun
Oh,
if in
cool.
Secret Wars, when eventually Hugh Jackman's Wolverine and Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man interact, it'd be fun if they were like, "Oh, I haven't seen you in a few years. Like it's been a while since we had that team up."
Oh yeah, yeah. So, but just I guess to wrap things up here, with Four Stick, it's not as like this movie's bad. It's terrible, but it's not this the steaming pile of trash I thought it was gonna be. Like it's not to the degree of I would never watch it again. Like if I'm doing a marathon of this, I might pop it back in again just to watch it and see. All right, what maybe like what will I think of it this time? Oh, still probably be bad, but I'll watch it again. There are films that are worse, like Catwoman with Halle Berry and such, and other movies like that. That's just that absolutely are unwatchable. That are comic book movies. So I just this one I feel like isn't unwatchable. It's just very forgettable. At the end of the day, I straight up watched it yesterday, and there are scenes I already don't even remember. so it's a very forgettable movie. And
Yeah, for me, this movie it crosses that line between being terrible to being so bad that it's fun to watch, and
Yeah.
like it is pretty boring, but the lines that it delivers on in terms of the goofiness and the camp are just so good that I feel like I'm hooked on this movie, and I'm gonna come back to it at some point and watch it again because as much as it's forgettable, those bad cheesy lines are not forgettable. Like ever since I've watched this, I've been telling myself like, oh, he's creating a black hole that'll tear the universe apart. And like all of these really cheesy, terrible lines of dialogue from this movie. Forever, I'm going to remember that tonal shift of like,
That's my favorite
everyone is
line.
burning to death. What is happening? And then now he's creating a black hole that's tearing the universe apart. And it's only been 90 seconds. What am I watching? Yeah.
What
am I
happened in
watching?
the last 40 minutes when he's like, "I promise, Ben, I'll promise I'll come back for you," and then he literally doesn't. He just actually straight up abandons him.
Yeah, that was hilarious. So before we get into talking about our anticipation levels for the new film, we can also do first off, Ari, give your final thoughts, and then we'll get into the ranking section.
Yeah, not good, not good at all. But there's things to like about it. The problem is it's just so bland and uninspired and lifeless, and nobody has any chemistry. And for some reason, at the beginning of the movie, they give the origin to the Clobbering timeline to his brother literally slapping him in the face. Score is not good. There's, I mean, the 2000s ones are bad, but this takes it to another level. It's just there's just nothing really memorable about it.
And it's
But it
very
could've been
miserable.
good.
Everybody hates each other. The team doesn't get along. Even at the end of the movie, like it's just an oppressive and not fun movie to watch in like any sense ever.
I feel like that's why
I do think
the
it's
2000s ones have respect now is maybe because this movie came out and they were like, did we judge these too harshly?
I do think it would be fun if we saw these actors show up in Secret Wars, but they're a different version of the team where they are from a universe where things were more uplifting and bright, kind of like the new one.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
No. I would love to see him again. Like we said, if there's going to be a council of Reeds, you got to have all the Reeds in there. Bring me Miles. I need Miles.
I know, right? I need Miles as well.
Will he or will he not say the line, say that again in Secret Wars?
What if Pedro Pascal says that line in the new one?
Will they dare tribute this movie?
You know what? They can have both Kate Mara and Jessica Alba show up in Secret Wars and credit them, but without us ever seeing the actors on screen. Because we can just say
because they're John Cena and the Bear.
They can just say that she was invisible in there because she was an invisible woman, and they could just
he was there the whole time. She's been in all the Marvel movies. You just didn't know it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. She's in that's the thing is Kate Mara's been there. She was in Deadpool 2. She was in all these other ones. She just was invisible. You just have to try to look for her. But with that said, there's only 4 of these, and when we do our Fantastic Four first steps review, we'll talk about like where we would rank it in the franchise. But in terms of what is out now, out of 4 not so good films, how would you go about ranking these?
I'll start because it's not a hard ranking for me. The bottom is so easily fan-forstic. Moments that are fun, but overall just like a not good movie, not fun to watch in any capacity. Then I would go with the 2005 Fantastic Four. It has fun stuff here and there, but it's tonally really inconsistent and hard to take seriously. Right above that, this is when it does become a little bit hard, but right above that, I would probably put the Rise of the Silver Surfer. I love the structure and the groundbreaking elements of that, but it has the same tonal problems as the first movie. And my number 1 is the 90s film. It embraces that comic book feel and that goofy Jack Kirby aesthetic. And the script is probably worse than a lot of these movies. The score is probably worse than a lot of these movies. But in terms of like the experience of watching it, it has those cheesy one-liners of fan-forstic, and it has the bright colors of Fantastic Four and Rise of the Silver Surfer. So it has all the good stuff of those movies and then some, right? So this is still not a good movie, but it's still a watchable movie. And I don't know if a lot of the other ones are watchable. So even though it's not a great movie, the 90s one's at my top. What are you ranking it, Ari?
I'd rank the Fantastic Four is the best one. Then Silver Surfer, then Fantastic Four, and then this Fantastic Four. And I agree with you. What you said about this movie is that it's not good, but it's more watchable than the 2000s ones, because at least those ones, they're just so like, you just don't know what they're trying to be. Like one scene they're one thing, and one scene they're another thing, and it's just.
Yeah, at least the 90s one kept its tone throughout. Like you knew throughout the whole film it was just utterly ridiculous kind of nonsense. So for me, I'm basically the same way. I'll go fan-forstic. There's not really many redeeming qualities here. I just maybe some of the effects are okay, but like I looked at Doctor Doom and I immediately was thinking, look how they massacred my boy from The Godfather. And then there's like just other things in here that do not work at all. Then I have 2005's Fantastic Four, because on a rewatch, if I was a kid, I probably would have this one above Rise of Silver Surfer, but now growing up, I'm like, this one, it's cheesy, kind of ridiculous, but also kind of stupid in parts. So I don't know. It can be fun at times, but overall, not that great. Rise of Silver Surfer has some great elements in there, especially with Silver Surfer. Like his stuff that he's doing is really great, and I like the idea of all them switching powers at some point. So you get like Sue on fire. You'd be like, I like fire and all that stuff, and then you get like like Johnny being invisible and all that. So all that kind of stuff is really fun. So it takes what worked in the original. I feel like it heightens on it, but then also what didn't work in the original, it still has in there too. So it's not perfect by any means. But then I know this is unpopular because like you look at the reviews for the 90s one, and like the 90s one is like maybe below fan-forstic because like the lowest reviewed in this franchise.
It's definitely close.
People really don't like it, but you know what? I have a blast with this film, and I think that this is a really fun time. This is to me the most accurate comic book movie I've seen, in terms of not necessarily, oh, look how accurate this read is, look how accurate this and that is. It's more so of this feels like a comic book come to life, like a pre-2000s comic book come to life, and I really respected it for that. So that's my number one for that reason. So
Yeah, I think we all have the same ranking then, and it's surprising because, like you said, the '90s Fantastic Four is not necessarily beloved, but we all liked it more than the rest of them.
it's got a 3.8 on IMDb when I last checked. I was like, come on, guys, it's not a 3.8 worthy. Y'all need to.
We're almost at the runtime of Rise of Silver Surfer.
Yeah, how are you guys feeling? We're about to get into the tomorrow. We'll all have seen Fantastic Four, the first steps. So, how are you guys feeling? Are you excited? Are you nervous? Is it going to be
I'm
number
not-
one
I'm
on this
I'm
thing?
not nervous. I'm pretty confident. It looks great. Everything I've seen from it is great. And I'm someone who was not excited when they announced the director because I'm in the minority. I was not a big fan of WandaVision. But I've been really impressed by all the marketing for this, and the reviews are great. I mean, sounds like they finally did it.
Yeah, I really hope they did. I would love. I mean, it'd be shocking if First Steps is not the number one on this list. It would be a really big disappointment. But I'm excited for it, and I tried to avoid spoilers in terms of cameos or in terms of like even watching a lot of the trailers and the clips. So I'm excited to go into it tomorrow. And yeah, who shows up? How do they set up Doomsday? But in the end, like, sell me on this family, sell me on these characters, make me want to see more of them, because every time they try so far, they haven't been able to sell us on more, right? Like, it's always been like one maybe watchable movie, and they can't really get past that. So I hope that more than anything, they can sell us on characters we want to spend time with for the next 10 years, rather than another 10 years of production hell waiting for another sequel.
A Jake Gyllenhaal, Reed Richards would have been great.
Oh, that would have been really cool too.
Well, that would have been. Imagine if he was Reed in the same Avengers movie where you have Downey Jr. as Doom. You'd be doing the same thing for both characters, where Spider-Man's like, wait, you look like him, but then wait, you sound like him.
Yeah,
I feel like it might have been a bit too much if you have two actors doing that same thing, though.
I think I honestly would have been better. I think it would have been a better choice to have honestly Jake Gyllenhaal as him in Multiverse of Madness than John Krasinski personally, because I think
because then he has a great relationship with him in the comics. He's like a father figure, an older brother figure, and it would have been interesting of how do you do that when he looks like someone who did all these horrible things to him.
Yeah, so that would be quite interesting, especially because it's like now he has to learn to trust him, and he's actually the good guy, and now the person who he actually was his father figure is actually the one that's trying to fight him, which is like interesting. So that would be a different take on things for sure. I'm excited. I'm very happy that it's getting good reviews. Could you imagine? Like, I watched Fantastic last night, and I was like, the bright side of that movie is you watch it and you say, well, it can't get any worse than this, So
yeah, there's never going to be a movie of Fantastic Four worse than that. We can at least say that.
Yeah, and so it's one of those things where I was going to bed that night and I was like, could you imagine a scenario? I think I even dreamed it, of a scenario where the new Fantastic Four was actually worse than Fantastic, and I was just like, oh my god, like that would be nightmare inducing.
And I will say that I avoided listening to any of the score, but I think Michael Giacchino he's honestly the best choice in take away Incredibles. Just the tone of his music generally is perfect for what Fantastic Four is going for.
Agreed. I think he is a really great choice, and I'm excited to listen to his score. I hear the score is great. And I'm also really excited to check out the Avatar 3 trailer that's going to be premiering.
Oh, I forgot about that. That's going to be awesome.
Yeah.
But my question is, does it play if you don't see it in IMAX?
I think it's at all the screenings. I think that's the thing, is they're saying every screening will have an Avatar 3 trailer in front of it. So that should be really, because I have just a 2D and a 3D kind of theater here. So it should be playing for me, so I'm really psyched about that. Unfortunately, it means no trailer reaction for you guys, but we can
we'll talk about it on a review or something. I'm sure we'll mention it on a review, right? We'll talk about our feelings about that trailer. I'll be talking about it. I don't know about the rest of you.
Oh, yeah.
I can't believe it. I don't know about you guys, but I'm like about 5 minutes away from being the day of Fantastic Four coming out, and I'm really excited.
Yeah.
Yeah, 7 minutes.
Yeah.
And we'll be on here late tomorrow night.
It is
once you've all
already
seen it.
It is already that day for me on the East Coast because it is 12:53 here. So I'm already here to see. I'm going to be seeing Fantastic Four in let's see,
A few
I'm going
hours.
to see it in 13 hours. 13
Wow.
hours.
That's hard to believe. And yeah, like we said, we're gonna be coming back on this stream right after we've all seen it and giving you our thoughts late tomorrow night once you guys have watched it. So come on back here tomorrow night and watch. We'll have a spoiler-free review, I believe, tomorrow night, and then we'll do a spoiler breakdown over the next couple of days once you guys have gotten the chance to check it out. So yeah, if you were curious what we thought of the new one, we'll be watching it tomorrow. Come back here and check it out. I'm gonna be seeing it twice before our review, so I'll be burning it in my retinas by the time we review it.
Oh yeah, for sure. So well, yeah, we'll be back here tomorrow to review the film for you guys. So be on the lookout for that. Be on the lookout also. I'll do like a straight out theater reaction immediately as soon as I watch it. So be on the lookout for all that coming onto the channel. And yeah, these guys will be joining me again for the review. So look forward to that.
I can't wait, man. It's gonna be fantastic.
Yeah. And
Say that again?
It's gonna be lit. Hopefully we don't have to, hopefully it's not a rocky road throughout the movie. Yeah.
What is this? Some kind of first steps?
Trying to make as many fantastic puns as possible.
We got Dr. Doom over here.
We got first steps over here.
I don't want y'all to
Say
have
that
to
again?
like go invisible on me during the review. So
Oh god, we gotta get out of here. We're losing it. We're losing our brains.
Hey, it's clobbering time.
We're losing it now. Oh god, we're like, days are going off the rails, guys. So we will see you all tomorrow night for Fantastic Four First Steps, our first steps into a better tomorrow
Larger
for this
world.
franchise. So we will see you all then, and until next time,
It's clobbering time.
remember, say that again.